Madam Secretary, please begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. This is a City Planning Commission review session. Today is Monday, December 1st, 2014, and a quorum is present. The first item involves the acquisition of property to facilitate the continued use of the Early Life 2 Daycare Center and the A. Philip Randolph Senior Center. Our presenter is Calvin.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. This application is an acquisition for property located at 108, 110 West 146th Street for the continued use of a child care and senior center in Manhattan Community District 10. The subject site is located on the south side of West 146th Street between Lenox Avenue and Adam Clayton Powell, and is located within the C83 zoning district. The remainder of the block, as much as the surrounding area, is characterized by residential with ground floor retail and some community facility uses sprinkled throughout the district. Directly north of the site is the MTA bus depot and office space. Further north, you have Esplanade Gardens, and even to your east, West 146th Street is the major commercial corridor in this area, and then you have the 3 train at 145th and Lenox Avenue. The subject site is an existing 2-story building. This is West 46th Street looking east and West 46th Street looking west. This is the MTA bus depot, and the site is off this corner here. It's an existing 2-story building that occupies the Early Life Child Care Center and the A. Philip Randolph Senior Center. There's also a social service use that is located on portion of the site, but the subject of this application here today is the senior center and the child care center. The daycare center occupies a portion of the first floor and the entire second floor, and the senior center occupies the entire first floor. There's an elevator that assists families going up to the daycare center, and the seniors remain on the first floor. They don't use the elevator. There's a rooftop play area that is seen here for the children. There are 2 separate entrances, though, for the child care center and for the senior center. These are a few pictures of the classrooms, the rooftop center, and the facade, and this is a picture of the senior center. The Early Life Center, which occupies the first portions of the first floor and the entire second floor, been in operation since the early 70s and serves up to 75 preschool children who attend the program regularly from Monday through Friday between the hours of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. The daycare provides a variety of activities for the children based on their age and developmental stage and the number of hours that they spend in the center. Meals are provided, which include breakfast, lunch, and a snack, and the center is licensed and subject to the established standards of ACS as well as federal and state and city regulations. The program is staffed by 20 professionals. The A. Philip Randolph Senior Center, which occupies the entire first floor, has also been in operation since the early 70s and serves up to 200 seniors who attend the program Monday through Friday between the hours of 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. And the center provides a variety of services that are geared towards improving the seniors' quality of life. There are some intergenerational programs, and meal services are provided as well. Physical activities include such things as yoga, Zumba, and line dancing, as shown in the backdrop of that picture there. Since this application came before the Commission in 1991, there has been some improvements that have been made to the facilities in terms of the rooftop area to prevent leakage. So the tarp was replaced. The kitchen was improved, upgrading the exhaust and stove. There's been upgrades made to the HVAC unit, the fire alarm, and the plumbing. And the windows have been upgraded to become energy efficient. To facilitate the continued operation of this existing child care center and senior center, the applicants are requesting the acquisition of the property that is located at 108 and 110 West 146th Street.
Thank you, Calvin. Questions? Start with Ms. Besser.
Thank you. So Was the asbestos removed?
Well, it was in the last lease that is part of this lease agreement. DCAS stated that there was no, when in their improvements, that they didn't find any asbestos in their renovations. But I can get a more detailed report on
Okay, thank you.
what was found.
Ms. Efron.
Thank you. Just because the approval was predicated on that, so it just feels like it needs resolution, that question
Yeah, I
of
was trying to
asbestos
figure
follow
out
by
whether it
Commissioner
was
Busse.
just a plan that they needed to have in place because there were some renovations that needed to be done to have this sort of asbestos removal plan. And so I'm trying to get a clear picture of whether it was a plan, was a plan in place, did they find anything, and how did they mitigate it?
So along those same lines, is the facility sprinklered? And would a new lease under the circumstances of ACS or under new ACS standards require that a space be sprinklered?
Well, it said fire alarm, but I'll get details. I was
you.
thinking that it
I
had
can't see in
sprinklers.
the photos if there are any sprinkler heads, but maybe they're recessed.
I'll
Thank you.
find out.
Mr. Knuckles.
Calvin, have you, in fact, visited the premises?
I did go to this facility, and it was well-maintained. A lot of activity, especially in the senior center. The daycare center was clean. I've used their pictures because, you know, they gave it to us electronically. But I did take some pictures. The facilities was clean and well-maintained.
When were you there?
I was there in October.
And when were these photos taken?
These were
Do you
taken
know?
in March, but I went on a rainy day, so I don't have clear shots of the playground. But I did go up there.
So you saw no leaks or
No leaks,
water stains? which would
no
indicate
water
liquids
stains. The
ran there?
kitchen was well, in good condition. They were cooking, so.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Levin.
I guess I have the same line of questions, but maybe we'll hear more about, I mean, the real question is whether there are any upgrades that ACS wants to have happen as part of this, and this is the perfect time to negotiate them. I assume this is an application for an acquisition, so is this
Yeah.
just for a lease renewal? They're not buying the building?
It's for a lease renewal.
Okay, similar.
Because they're
20
basically on a month-to-month, so this is a lease renewal.
Okay.
Yes.
So it'd be important to learn in the course of the public review process whether there are upgrades that need to be negotiated for
Okay.
now, because this is the perfect opportunity to do those. And I also noticed in reading the Manhattan Borough President's report from 20 years ago that a new bus facility was contemplated across the street, and there was great concern about the impact the bus facility would have on the students. And here we are, more than 20 years later,
And
and
the
the
bus
brand-new
depot
bus
is there.
depot is finally operational. So also, I'll be curious during the public review process to hear about impacts, interactions between kids and seniors and the bus depot, where the buses go in and out, what if
They
there
actually-
are
the
air
bus-
quality problems associated with having all the buses and that sort of stuff.
The buses actually go in and out here, but there was some queuing.
They were lined up on the sidewalk,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, there were. But it didn't seem like it was obstructing anybody's, ability to get in and out of the facility, or it just seemed like there were buses queuing there.
Still, even after the new facility's open?
Yes,
Wow.
not that many, but there were some there, which will be interesting because there's development that is occurring here. I'm not sure if it's residential or not, so it definitely will, have, the buses may not be able to remain.
Yeah, I knew that was a
there.
problem before, and I thought the new facility was supposed to resolve that. Anyway, we'll hear from the community board, I'm
Yes.
sure. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Calvin. Certified.
Let's now move to item
I
number-
should just add one thing on the programmatic side, which is this is the second or third facility we've seen where there's a co-location of senior center and childcare center, and the opportunity for some intergenerational programming just seems obvious and also seems not as a one-off, but something, if there are several of these facilities, should really be part of the ongoing program coordination between the two agencies. So we will follow up on that. Ms. Efron.
Chris or Weisbrot, is there another social service on site there as well that you think we should share with us?
Separate, has a separate entrance. So the two-story structure is where the daycare and the senior center is, and then towards the corner of the lot, this portion here is one story, and it's a family social service sort of organization. It's called the 7th Avenue Center for Family Services. So they're located at the corner.
I raise it only to see if perhaps there's a third party that could be involved.
Good idea. We will follow up with both ACS and the Department for the Aging.
Okay, thanks, Calvin. Let's now move to item number 2, page 23, proposed acquisition of property to facilitate the continued use as a senior citizen center for property located on 13th Avenue in Brooklyn. And I'd like to introduce Jonah Rogoff, who's making his very first presentation before the commission today. That's item number 2, page 23.
Hello. Good afternoon. This action is it's a joint application from the Department for the Aging and the Department for Citywide Administrative Services. They're requesting an acquisition of property located at 5901 13th Avenue in the Borough Park neighborhood of Brooklyn. It's located in Community District 12. It's for the continued use of a senior center, which has operated since 1973. The current lease has expired about a year ago, and the applicant is requesting the approval to renew their lease, and the center occupies the second and third story of the building. As you can see from the area map, the site is located in an R5 zoning district. It's a short walking distance from public transportation. You could see, let me pull up this laser pointer, which is kind of helpful. Maybe I'll just, you can see the D train lines here. And then you also have the N subway line over here. So it's very accessible as well for, then you have bus service along the Utrecht Avenue and 13th, only a few blocks away. There are local and 13th Avenue. And then adjacent to the building, south is along 60th Street is an M1-1 district. That's characterized by 1 to 2 story industrial, commercial uses. There are a few building, healthcare supply stores, as well as a large grocery store. There's a Pathmark, actually located right there. With approximately 30,000 square foot of floor area. Amico Senior Center occupies only the second and third floor of the building, totaling approximately 18,750 square feet. A privately operated school occupies the building's first floor. The entire center was described as being ADA compliant. These features are actually partly visible. You can see hallways have handrails, and then in front of the center, the entrance is at grade, and there's actually an elevator a few feet from the entrance to accommodate wheelchair access. The entire center contains a range of uses and physical spaces. You can see from here, center is highly used, active. There's a dance floor, a room for playing cards, a mahjong, an exercise room, billiards room, and multiple open areas that function for playing bingo or other activities. In July 1993, the commission approved the use of the space for a 20-year term. During that period of time, the first floor of the building was occupied by the Vincent Caristo Child Care Center, which is a city-managed facility leased by ACS. The ACS filed a joint application with the Department for the Aging and the Citywide Administrative Services in 2012. This application was actually withdrawn because the daycare center experienced a shortfall in funding, can no longer operate. As such, this application applies only to the portion of the building occupied by the senior center. Daily, an average of 265 seniors use the center, while over 7,000 adults in the surrounding area are listed as members. Annually, the center is funded to serve 66,000 meals per year, 7,000 units of physical exercise, 1,200 units of case assistance, and other units for health management. The center is open 5 days a week. It serves lunch and offers an array of programs for health, fitness, nutritional education. The center also has social workers on site that assist members with social service needs, such as applying for entitlement programs and other benefits. The center, in addition, has quite a few intergenerational programs. They work with volunteers from nearby public schools, with developmentally disabled students who assist with maintenance and dietary maintenance tasks and dietary tasks. And they also work with graduate interns from the NY School of Social Work. Further, many high school and college students volunteer with the center and through the New York Youth Works program. It's a state-based workforce development program. During a recent site visit, we observed that the center was highly active, well-used, and appeared in overall good condition. Several repairs and renovations were completed since 1993, when the commission last approved the use of the center. I can go into further detail, but in general, there were renovations to the fire alarm system, security system, and air conditioning and ventilation systems. The center's director explained the landlord has attempted to fix issues regarding water leaks, so that's one outstanding issue. Another issue relates to the lumberyard adjacent to the center, which is located right here. It's a lumber supply store that uses forklifts sometimes to transport material. You can see that this is a loading dock, which is close to the center, but it actually is away from the entrance. There have been incidents in the past where forklifts are kind of maneuvering around seniors who are walking to the center or walking around the center. So that's an issue that the center director raised that I wanted to make the commissioner aware about. And then aside from that, that concludes my presentation. Again, this application is for the continued use of the space. And the commission's approval, as you know, would initiate public review of the application through the ULURP process. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonah. Questions? Yes, Mr. Dwyer.
Do you know of any steps that have been taken to remediate the forklift issue?
The center's director they've boarded the issue to the community board, to their local council member, and to the NYPD. They regard it as a code enforcement issue that is difficult to monitor. But I also, during the site visit, I asked them if they had reached out to DOT to consider ways of limiting the access to the site, and they haven't taken that route.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Reade.
Just to follow up and to ask the obvious, have they spoken to the lumber company itself? I mean, lumberyard, and have they not been responsive to them?
The lumberyard they have been responsive in that they've made efforts. The director of the center explained that there were forklifts that used to actually come around the center when parking was difficult. But since then they've stopped that. But they still a big problem that they can't resolve is the fact that you have there's a loading dock where the lumber supplies are there. So even so, they're having a difficult time, kind of like preventing seniors from sort of using this, from walking along this space to enter the center. If that.
My understanding is that that is the obvious pedestrian path from the subway, is that?
From the D, you actually would walk along 13th Avenue, but if you were to take the N, the entrance is over here. This is also a D entrance as well. So there you could, but a lot of seniors live in the surrounding area, so they may live in this area, which is like, this is sort of the border between Borough Park and Diker Heights.
So their natural path would be to walk by the lumber yard?
That's correct, or
So-
you could walk across the street as well, but that would be the easiest way to enter the center.
Okay. Mr. Dweck?
So going back to enforcement, which agency would be in charge? You said NYPD and DOT. Which agency would have the power of enforcement over the use of the sidewalk?
I'd have to look into that further, but according to the center's director, they said that the NYPD is the main agency that would issue tickets, violations to the owner for operating on the sidewalk.
It's a tough issue because it's obviously fairly important to the lumberyard's operation to be able to use the sidewalk to some extent for loading and unloading.
And that's illegal. That's illegal loading and unloading, I'd imagine. There's a curb cut and.
That's correct. Yeah, the loading dock is actually right here, but from during the site visit, we observed that they will have load some lumber supplies
On the street.
near the dock.
Thank you.
Ms. Besser?
Is there a way they could possibly put a fence to designate an area that the seniors could walk on?
That's one of the issues that when we asked them in terms of did they reach out to DOT. So they are interested in like a more permanent solution, but they seem to be more concerned about having a presence of officers or code enforcement personnel that can really stop the forklifts being used along that path.
Mr. Dweck?
I'm sorry to keep on this, but has there ever been any incidents, or is this just something that they're concerned of?
There was one not major, but there was an incident in March when a senior was physically hit. And I don't know the extent of the injury, but it sort of prompted them to reach out to the council member and to be more aggressive about their approach.
Is there a particular hour where pedestrians or seniors come to the center and leave the center? Or is there, I assume they come and leave throughout the day, but is there heavy use in the morning and in the evening, or as far as you were aware?
I need to check with DIPTA and the director, but there are activities throughout the day where some seniors will come just for lunch, but when we were there are sort of programs that are independent of the regular schedule of the center.
Mr. Marin?
It appears from the lower right-hand picture in the middle frame that they're storing materials on the street, on city streets, which causes them to have to use the sidewalk for the forklift. Is the use of the street legal?
I'd have to
I mean, 'cause that's what's causing the forklifts to go up and down the sidewalk, because they have to come and latch on to the materials and then bring them inside. You're not going to go into the street because now you're causing a traffic problem, so you're using the sidewalk. So the question is the storage of materials on that street legal? Is it allowed? Do they have a permit?
I'd have to get back to you on that. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
My sense is that there is no permit to store goods on a city street. But it's I guess one question is whether that's storage or whether that's just loading and unloading in and out, and so it's a tough issue. Anyway, any other questions for Jonah? Certified. I assume we'll hear more about this when this comes back. Thank you.
Let's now move to item number 3. Joan is also our presenter. It involves a City Planning Commission proposed certification that no special permit is required to facilitate an enlargement to an existing nursing home. This is item number 3, the Ditmars Park Care Center proposed enlargement, page 47. And Joan is our presenter once again.
Hello again. This certification pursuant to section 22-42 of the zoning resolution that a special permit is not required for the enlargement of an existing 6-story nursing home. It's an expansion from approximately 63,000 square feet to 104,700 square feet, as well as an increase of 21 beds for patients or guests from 201 to 222 beds. The Ditmars Park Care Center is located in Brooklyn's Community District 14 at 2107 Ditmas Avenue. Let me pull out the laser pointer once again. Sorry. It's between East 21st and East 22nd Street. The site is located right here in the neighborhood of Flatbush or Ditmas Park. Among other renovations, the enlargement will contain an additional 21 beds for a new pediatric and adult ventilation unit, as well as a new dialysis center. The project site is located in a medium-density residential district with mostly 3 to 6-story apartment buildings. There are commercial and retail uses along Flatbush Avenue and Ocean Avenue, as well as, there's also bus service along Flatbush and Ocean Avenue right here. And there are train lines approximately a little over 1.5 mile away from the site. The care center sits mostly within an R7A district, but it's also partly within a R6A. So just to point out this separation right here. And the site is currently in a tax lot 42, but they're hoping to extend to to tax lot 38 as well. The care center is a full-service, short-term rehabilitation nursing home. It's constructed as of right in 1975. In May 2012, the commission approved a zoning certification at the site that proposed an 18,250 square foot enlargement with no increase in the number of beds. This certification was approved but not utilized. The current application reflects an increase in both the size of the enlargement and the number of beds. The proposed an increase of 21 beds and approximately 41,750 square feet of floor area. And I would just like to show a site plan and elevations from the architects. So just to generalize, the enlargement is planned to be 6 stories. Right here, the shaded section the existing building footprint is outlined in black, and the shaded portion represents the location of the enlargement. In this section is proposed to increase by 3 stories with a rooftop garden or recreational area. And then there is proposed to be a 6-story enlargement at this corner in this area, as well as the renovations here where the 6-story enlargement would just occur over here. In the project description, the applicant states that this enlargement will help the center meet current nursing home standards set by the State Department of Health. And in June of 2010, the applicant obtained a certificate of need from the state to add additional beds and expand their facilities. In order to facilitate the enlargement, the applicant is requesting a certification by the City Planning Commission that none of the 3 conditions described in Section 22-42 apply to the community district in which the site is located. This is detailed in your briefing package. These three conditions concern bed to population ratio, scarcity of land for community uses, and recent construction of facilities. And these are stated in the discussion of findings. If any of these conditions are found, the proposed enlargement would require a special permit. On November 5th, the Community Board 14 held a hearing, not a hearing, but a meeting for informational purposes, where the applicant presented their proposal. No issues were really discussed or related to us. The Community Board decided not to vote on the item or issue any recommendation at that point. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
And Jonah, as far as you've looked at this, and none of the 3 conditions that would require a special permit have been met, is that correct?
That's correct. And I'm happy to describe any of those in detail if needed.
Any questions? Ms. Levin.
Yes, Joan, I'm a little puzzled about the timing of some of these activities. The briefing sheet says that in 2010, they received a certificate of need, which would have allowed an enlargement, but in 2012, they were before us for, I guess, reconfiguration. Well, I guess it was a physical enlargement, but no additional beds. So did the 2010 enlargement actually allow more than they ended up doing? And why didn't they, does that same certificate of need cover this expansion for the additional beds?
I'd have to double check with the applicant, but as far as I'm concerned, it does. I'd have to follow up with you just to be certain. But it's my understanding that it does, but they may require additional, an amendment to the certificate of need.
That's it.
We will get back to you on the specific question.
Just be sure they have everything they need from the state to allow it to happen.
And assuming they do, any other questions? Assuming they do, I would ask for your assent by show of hands to send an approval letter to DOB. And if there's an issue, we will hold the letter and come back to you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. assent is granted. Jonah, let us know specifically that they are in order at this point.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Jonah. Not bad for 2 first presentations. Very nice. So let's now move to item number 4. We also have a new member of the Manhattan office who's making his first presentation before the City Planning Commission. This is Ezra Moser. He's going to present a proposed modification to a previously approved City Planning Commission special permit to facilitate changes to an existing configuration within a garage, as well as reduction in the number of parking spaces for property located at 332 West 44th Street. This is item number 4, page 57.
Thank you, Jackie. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an application by EXG 332 West 44 LLC for modification to a special permit previously granted pursuant to zoning resolution sections 13562, which has since been superseded, section 7452, and section 96111 for a 3-story plus roof attended public parking garage located at 332 West 44th Street in Manhattan, CD4. The applicant states that the modification will facilitate changes to the garage's internal configuration, which will improve vehicular circulation efficiency as well as customer convenience. Also, the modifications will result in a net reduction of parking spaces from 350 to 337 and a reduction in reservoir spaces. So, as indicated, the development site is located in Manhattan CD4 in Clinton on a block bounded by West 44th Street to the north, West 43rd Street to the south, 8th Avenue to the east, and 9th Avenue to the west. It is located in a C62 zoning district within the preservation area of the Special Clinton District. The development site was originally granted a special permit by CPC for a public parking garage on July 16th, 1958, and has since been continuously used as such. Inclusive of the original special permit, it's been subject to 7 CPC actions as outlined in your briefing packet. Most recently, on March 2nd, 2011, the CPC approved a new special permit pursuant to the aforementioned sections, which the current application is modifying. This special permit increased number of parking and reservoir spaces. As indicated, it's located in Manhattan CD4 in the Clinton neighborhood, and from east to west, the neighborhood transitions from the high-rise commercial character of Midtown to the more low-rise residential and mixed-use fabric of Clinton and Hell's Kitchen. The easterly portion of the surrounding area represents the westerly extremity of the Theater District and Special Midtown District, and we have the Port Authority bus terminal located at the southerly edge of the surrounding area. McCaffrey Park is located directly to the development site southwest. As indicated, it's located within a C62 zoning district and the Special Clinton District. The Special Clinton District covers the majority of the surrounding area westerly of 8th Avenue. As for existing conditions, the parcel is a 17,272 square foot L-shaped interior and through lot with 172 feet of frontage along West 44th Street and 25 feet of frontage along West 43rd Street. Both West 44th and West 43rd Street are narrow streets, and West 44th Street, which provides the primary means of ingress and egress, is one way from west to east. Development site is currently improved with the garage, which is 3 stories plus a roof with 350 parking spaces, 18 reservoir spaces, and contains 44,654 square feet of zoning floor area. The garage has a 2-lane entrance off of West 44th Street, as well as, 44th Street, as well as a 1-lane exit with a stop gate, also on West 44th Street, and it has a 1-lane exit on West 43rd Street, the use of which is restricted to the hours between 6 p.m. and 8 a.m. The ground floor has a centrally located office with an attendance booth. This includes employee restrooms and lockers, and there is a network of striped pedestrian walkways to lead customers to the exit on West 44th Street. The 350 parking spaces are located on the upper stories, which are accessed by 2-way ramps towards the rear of the garage. The roof contains 64 stackers, and the use of the stackers is restricted between 12 a.m. and 6 a.m. It also includes 10-foot screening as required by the 2011 special permit. The applicant has noted that the existing conditions do not fully comply with the approved plans. A request for inspection was issued to DOB, and the results have been issued. We're waiting to be notified about a violation. Moving on to the proposed conditions, the applicant proposes a number of changes to the garage's interior layout that will improve vehicular movement and efficiency, as well as customer convenience and safety. It will result in a net reduction of parking from 350 spaces to 337 spaces, and a net reduction in reservoir spaces from 18 to 17. So new, wider staircases will be installed in the northeasterly, northwesterly corner, replacing 2 located towards the rear. A new set of elevators will also be installed at the northeasterly corner, fronting on West 44th Street. The parking spaces above on the 2nd, 3rd, and roof stories will be reconfigured accordingly to this new means of access. A new entry lane will be added to the formerly 1-lane exit with a stop gate onto 44th Street. On the proposed plans, the curb cut will be 22 feet. Mainly, the reservoir spaces on the ground floor will be reconfigured to accommodate the new means of ingress, but to allow for a smoother flow of cars to the drop-off space towards the rear of the garage at the base of the up-ramps. This will decrease the likelihood of cars queuing on the street to access. The garage's middle and westerly 44th Street frontages will be reserved for active retail uses, which will enliven the streetscape and improve the building's facade. That's 3,300 square feet in total. The customer service area will be relocated from the central rear portion of the garage to the West 44th Street frontage for increased customer convenience and safety. And the employee restroom and locker room spaces are going to be relocated to the flush with the rear of the garage. The garage's office will be relocated to a 675 square foot space on the 2nd story. And on the ground floor, again, the striped pedestrian walkways will be reconfigured to accommodate the new reservoir spaces as well as means of access. On the roof level, the stackers will be reduced from 64 to 52. And parking spaces will be reconfigured to accommodate for the new stairs and elevator. So with these requested modifications, cars entering the garage from either of the 3 entry lanes will follow their appropriate lane around to the rear of the garage at the base of the ramp up, where they will drop off their cars and an attendant will pick it up. Customers will then follow the striped pedestrian walkways to the exits on West 44th or 43rd Street. For pickup, returning customers will pay at the customer service area and wait at this striped portion directly outside for their cars to be brought around to them. If they intend to exit via the West 43rd Street egress at appropriate hours, they will follow the striped pedestrian pathway around, and it will be dropped off here for them. So the applicant seeks modification of a special permit previously granted pursuant to superseded Section 13562, Section 7452, and 9611 to reflect this reconfigured parking plan. The applicant states that these changes will improve vehicular circulation and customer convenience and safety. Section 96111 prohibits public parking garages from being located within the preservation area of the Special Clinton District, except by applicable special permit pursuant to Article 1, Chapter 3. Pursuant to now superseded Section 13562, the City Planning Commission may by special permit allow public parking garages and public parking lots not otherwise permitted pursuant to the applicable provisions of Section 7452. So, the following findings must be met in order to be granted a special permit under Section 7452. These findings are attached in the briefing packet. Principally, the garage must not be incompatible with or adversely affect the growth and development of essential uses and functions in the general area. The garage must not contribute to serious traffic congestion or inhibit surface traffic and pedestrian flow. The garage must be situated so as to draw a minimal amount of vehicular traffic to and through local streets and nearby residential areas. The garage must provide reservoir space for 20% of spaces calculated upon the first 50, and then 5% of all spaces over 200. This comes out to, for the proposed garage, 17 spaces, which they provide. That streets providing access must be able to handle the traffic generated. That roof parking must be so located as to not impair the essential character or future use or development of adjacent areas. And where floor space is exempted from the definition of floor area, such additional floor space is needed in order to prevent excessive on-street parking demand and relieve traffic congestion. Thank you, and I'll field questions.
Ms. Efron.
You mentioned additional retail. Is there currently any retail in the space?
No, there's not currently.
And is it allowed as of right in that, if it weren't parking?
I'm told that it was.
Okay. And is there any precondition or any regulation when there is a special parking permit and retail use adjacent to it or included within it?
I can look into that and get back to you.
Okay.
I don't believe there is,
Thank you.
but we'll check. Ms. Levin.
I gather that, well, has queuing been a problem back up on the street been a problem? I know this is a primo parking garage if you're going to any of the theaters in the neighborhood, and traffic is always a nightmare at theater getting in time.
Right.
Is this going to make how bad has queuing been on the street, and how much better is it planned to be as a result of this?
I'm told there have been issues with queuing. I don't know the extent to it. I can check with the applicant and get back to you.
Or I can go read the environmental stuff that was part of our package.
Okay.
But I would hope it would yield a measurable improvement, because it's a difficult situation over there.
My assumption is if the applicant is prepared to actually reduce the number of capacity here by 13 spaces, or 23 spaces?
Yeah.
23 spaces, that the advantage of doing that is that cars can get in faster and leave faster, thereby reducing queuing rather than increasing it.
Right, and I'd also assume that the applicant wouldn't be going through this level of hassle to make these changes if it wasn't going to lead to a better operation for them and for the
Right.
public.
And if I'm not mistaken, the applicant is a new owner or operator than the
Yes.
one that existed?
They
in the past,
acquired
right?
the space after the 2011 special permit.
Right. So, Any other questions for Ezra? Thank you, Ezra. And this would be referred to the Community Board for 45 days, and I assume Community Board 4 will have a lot to say about viewing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's now move to item number 5, page 72, proposed renewal to a previously approved City Planning Commission special permit to facilitate changes to an existing plaza. This is item number 5, page 72. And our presenter is Richard, 55 Broadway. Awesome.
Pretty good, pretty good. This is a private application pursuant to Section 1143 for renewal of a special permit that was granted in 2010 pursuant to Section 9171C to allow the elimination of mandatory and elective public amenities of the former Special Greenwich Street Development District at 55 Broadway in Lower Manhattan. 55 Broadway is an existing 31-story commercial office building located, so shown here in the middle, located in a lot bounded by Broadway to the east, Exchange Alley to the north, and Trinity Place to the west. The site is located in the financial district of Community District 1 and is in a C55 zoning district in the Special Lower Manhattan District. The site is located in an area that was formerly designated as the Special Greenwich Street Development District, which was established in 1971 and outlined many urban design controls, namely mandatory and elective public amenities, to improve pedestrian circulation with an elevated pedestrian system, to improve transit access, and to increase shopping opportunities in the area between the World Trade Center and the Battery. The special district was eliminated with the adoption of the Special Lower Manhattan District in 1998, but provisions were made to allow the modification of previously required amenities so that they may be made more consistent with the present goals of the district. The building at 55 Broadway was developed in 1982 pursuant to the regulations of the former special district that allowed the building's maximum FAR to increase from 15 to 18 and to increase the building's tower lot coverage from 40% to 55%. In exchange for the increase in floor area and tower lot coverage, certain public amenities were provided. So this is a look at the building ground floor. There's Broadway, Exchange Alley, and Trinity Place. And then here, colored in, is the building ground floor, the actual footprint. Around that is the arcade, wraps around the lobby and some of the retail spaces. There's a through-block urban plaza. And then here are escalators. These escalators go down to another open area along Trinity Place. Then these escalators here go up and into the mezzanine area to an elevated shopping way shown right here. There's also a loggia space. It's kind of a transitional space between all the different amenities. That's basically between the arcade, escalators, and the urban plaza. Here's some views of the existing spaces today. This is the front of the building with the arcade wrapped around. A look through the urban plaza going down towards Trinity Place. Right here, here's Exchange Alley. Here's a look going down the escalators to the open areas and then looking back up. And this here is Trinity Place. And then these areas total 6,929 square feet. The building was also responsible for the reconstruction of the portion of Exchange Alley between Broadway and Trinity Place with special pavers, although the street is still technically open to vehicular traffic despite being so narrow. The building was built to an FAR of approximately 17.87, below the FAR of 18 that was permitted through the provision of these required and elective mandatory public amenities. In 2010, the site received a special permit pursuant to Section 9171C to eliminate some of the mandatory and elective public amenities without a corresponding reduction in building floor area. The special permit involved the elimination of 1,166 square feet of the arcade and 259 square feet of loggia, along with the elimination of an escalator and the elevated shopping way. So this here is the current condition. In blue are the arcades. In green is the urban plaza. In magenta or pink are the escalators. These escalators are outside of the building and go down. These escalators are inside the building and go up to the mezzanine area where there's the elevated shopping way. And then the orange is the loggia space. Through the special permit, the arcade which was previously, or the building curtain wall, which previously here, was then allowed to extend into the existing arcade up to here. This would then allow the maintenance of the existing urban plaza in its original size. The escalators going down, then the areas in purple do not meet the definitions of the required amenities, but still would be secured as public space all the way around. And then the escalators inside would be eliminated, and the elevated shopping way would be eliminated. The addition of 1,425 square feet of floor area would result in a building with an FAR of 17.96, still below the max of 18. The project also involved improvements to the urban plaza, an open area along Trinity Place with new lighting, seating, and planting. These improvements were incorporated in the chairperson certification for design changes to the urban plaza and a modification to the restrictive declaration to secure the remaining open areas as publicly accessible. Those two actions, which were approved at the same time as the special permit, will not lapse and therefore do not need to be renewed. Since all changes are reflected in both the restrictive declaration and the special permit drawings, no improvements to the open areas may take place until the special permit is renewed. Here's some views of the improvements. This is a plan of the building showing the improvements to the urban plaza with special pavers, new planting, lighting, and seating along Trinity Place. And then here's a view looking down towards Trinity Place of the retail infill, and also again looking down Trinity Place, another view of the infill. The owner of the site therefore requests a renewal of the previously approved special permit pursuant to section 1143 for an additional 3-year term to complete the expansion of the ground floor retail and improvements of the existing open areas. The prior ownership was unable to begin work on the site improvements due to financial difficulties and sold the building to the current ownership, who took control of the property on April 1st. The new owner does not propose any changes to the drawings and improvements that were approved by the Commission in 2010. In the granting of the original special permit, the Commission made the finding that the proposed change will provide a greater public benefit in light of the public amenities purpose and the purposes of the Special Lower Manhattan District, acknowledging that the enlargement of the retail space is consistent with the goal of providing retail along Broadway within the special district. The applicant proposes that the facts upon which the special permit was granted have not substantially changed. Since the granting of the special permit, major new developments have been completed or are underway at 50 West Street, the Fulton Transit Center, and the World Trade Center, all beyond 400 feet of 55 Broadway. These projects were planned or approved before the granting of the special permit at 55 Broadway and are only now being completed. There have been no major zoning changes in the surrounding area. On November 20th, Manhattan Community Board 1, by a vote of 27-2 with 1 abstention, issued a resolution to support the application for renewal of the special permit with the following conditions: that the developer provides clear evidence that sufficient funding is in place to complete the proposed renovations so that the area does not become another one of the numerous stalled construction sites that exist in Lower Manhattan with unsightly scaffolding, fenced-off areas, and other eyesores; that the developer provides a plan to improve the appearance of the plaza immediately before construction begins for renovations proposed by the developer. This plan should be shared with CB1 and include timetables for all necessary repairs, installation of plantings, and schedule of improved maintenance of the plaza and the escalator leading to the second floor. That the developer provides a plan to ensure that the plaza remains attractive during the construction period when the plaza renovations are being made. This plan should include details about maintenance of the improved plantings, adequate lighting, maintenance of the escalator, and the pedestrian access. And CB1 also requests that LEED certification and/or Energy Star rating or other green measures be incorporated in the building design. I should note that the first 3 conditions were a repeat from the Community Board's 2009 resolution issued with the original special permit. But the applicant has responded directly to the Community Board. In response to the first condition, a contractor has already been selected for work. Construction documents have already been prepared. The applicant is ready to obtain DOB permits once the special permit is renewed. All work, in terms of the second condition, all work is ready to begin immediately, as I mentioned, but in terms of phasing, the new curtain wall will be installed first, but in coordination with the plaza improvements. All work will be completed under 1 contract. In response to the third condition, during construction, the applicant will maintain access through the plaza and open areas to ensure safe passage between Broadway and Trinity Place. The escalators will be kept in working order during construction. And in addressing the fourth condition, since the purchase of the building in April, the applicant qualified the building for Energy Star certification and is in the process of having it certified. The new glass for the retail space will also have a high insulating value to better control temperatures and reduce the transfer of heat through the glass. Thanks.
Any questions for Richard? Ms. Levin.
So Richard, I assume then on the Community Board's 2 conditions about the appearance or amenities in the plaza pending completion of the big plan, that is basically a no from the developer because they have to have access to the plaza while they're doing the construction?
Essentially, in 2010, the applicant did note, and was noted in the report, that the entire plaza must be closed
Right.
to pedestrians. It seems now that the current owner is willing to open, or able to open up part of the plaza for pass-through, but all work must happen right at once, and theoretically, everything will go by smoothly
okay.
and quicker if we just do it in one shot.
So that seems like a reasonable answer if, in fact, they rush over to DOB and pull their permits and get to work. But
They're ready to go.
if we're waiting for another period of time, it would seem to me that the community board's conditions are appropriate. But let's hope for the best.
Ms. Ortiz?
Hi, how are you? I just had some questions for clarification. So you said that they were allowed to, the maximum permitted floor area went from 15 to 18. They didn't build to 18, but what did they build to?
It was 17, I said 17, 17.86? 17.87. When you get to a building that's over 200,000 square feet, 2,000 square feet here and there doesn't make the biggest difference. But by the provision of all these amenities, they could build to 18, they just built to less.
Okay. So, they were able to increase the size of their building as a result of offering public amenities. And now the request is to take back a portion of those public amenities, but they receive the benefit of the additional square footage. Is that correct? Am I understanding this?
Well, the action before us is a renewal of the special permit that was already approved. So in 2010, the commission already...
No, I understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then yes.
I'm just trying to get sort of the storyline.
I think the commission and the city has found that some of these amenities that were provided are no longer useful, do not serve the purpose of the original intent of the special district. It had connecting elevated passageways, and a coordinated plan didn't work so well when you couldn't coordinate a bunch of private owners.
I have to say, I agree that space doesn't function very well. From a retail perspective, I agree that the lack of visibility is going to kill whatever business is occupying that space. So it's not an issue. I'm just trying to understand how this works. So basically, we, the public, the idea is we're giving back about 1,400 square feet of public space, for which I don't know what rents are. Do we know what they're going to rent this for?
Not sure.
They anticipate?
Sure.
But I was thinking about this. I was running some numbers, and we're basically giving them value. If they're renting 1,400 square feet for about $100, and I don't even know, this is just a test scenario. This could be, the value in the annual rent roll is about $3.5 million if we use a 4% cap rate. It's just interesting that what we're asking, they've received a benefit for having provided a public space. They're now taking back portion of the public space, adding value to their building and their rent roll, which, my understanding is in 2014, this building sold for $157 million. So this is about 2% of the overall value that we're adding. And I'm just wondering what we're getting for it.
One thing someone can say is that at the end of the day, we can tax them a little more. Their value might go up, so we might be able to realize some of those gains. The city. I should note that in other public spaces, other private and public spaces throughout the city that have provided through as-of-right or certification processes, that we do have existing certification and special permit processes to safeguard, and I think this is one of them. For the public to have the opportunity to review any potential loss of public space, and I think at the end of the day, the size of the spaces are often linked to the amount of floor area, and in this specific case, they are still compliant and still meet the findings of the original special permit.
I guess I would also say that those of us, and I know how dysfunctional this particular, I don't even know if you'd call it a plaza, this particular connection between Broadway and Trinity Place is, and how poor the retail has been at this location. And this part of Lower Broadway has been plagued over the years by relatively poor retail. So there is a trade-off on the one hand of some open space in return for presumably higher quality retail, and yes, a benefit for the owner, but also presumably a benefit for the public since the community board overwhelmingly approved it. So I think the community is prepared to embrace that trade-off. And I think we see from time to time, and we'll see more, I think, coming to the commission in the future on public spaces that don't work very well and what we can do to improve them. It's not to say that in every case there should be a trade-off of amount of open space for higher quality something else, but in some cases, that's in the public's interest. And I would submit, this is a public space I lived with for 10 years, and I'm quite familiar with how miserably it functions. Ms. Levin.
And I guess there are a few of us who are on the commission when the permit was approved in 2010. We had exactly that conversation. What's the developer getting out of this? Is the public getting something appropriately good out of it? It's a failed public. The mistake was the special permit in the very beginning that allowed this lousy space to be built. And I think, at least I, in voting on this, came to the conclusion that this was not an ideal situation, but certainly better than the current conditions and worth supporting. So today we get to the application simply to give them another 3 years to try and realize what we did approve 3 years ago. But we did give it some careful consideration and debate when it was first approved. And I do hope it makes it a whole lot better.
Ms. Ortiz, yeah.
If I may, I agree. This is an improvement over what's there. I mean, that alley, it's dark, it's cold, it's uninviting, it's really problematic. So it's more the principle of what's happening underneath, and if we're going to be looking at these moving forward, how might we want to frame the discussion because we're providing value.
Yeah. I think there's no question about that. And I think in situations like this, at least for me, this is one area where the community board's view of it is, if not totally dispositive, is something that really does influence me greatly because that's the area that has to ultimately live with this trade-off, and whether the trade-off is worth it or not. And it may be on a case-by-case basis, or it may be something that can be framed in a more general way. I don't know.
I think the intangible is the quality of
Yeah. I mean, I think we all sort of start here with the knowledge and the personal knowledge, because I think most of us have experienced this space, how badly it's functioned. So
Agreed. Yeah.
you know, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Richard? Okay, so with a show of hands and assent to send this to the Buildings Department for a renewal. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Approved.
Let's now move to item number 6. It's a Manhattan pre-hearing application with respect to a proposed special use permit to facilitate an enlargement to a building containing JLWQA and to facilitate residential use. This is item number 6, page 108, Manhattan pre-hearing application, and our presenter is Vivian.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. As Jackie just said, this item is before you today for pre-hearing review. It is an application for a special permit pursuant to Section 74-711 to modify use and bulk of the subject M15A zoning district. Site is located on the east side of Green Street between Prince and Spring Streets in an M15A zoning district. And this is a drawing of the block front itself. This is opposite the subject block. You may know the building. A known artist had lived in the building, and the building is notable for its door. The door looks somewhat sculpted metalwork designs, which had been the work of the sculptor who had lived in the building. And in response to requests by the community board, the applicant has agreed to place a plaque in the lobby of the building acknowledging that the artist had lived there. The building had originally been constructed as a 5-story building. It was one of a series of sister buildings designed, same design. There was a fire in the 1940s, and what had been a 5-story building was brought down to a 3-story building. The upper 2 stories have been destroyed by the fire. There is currently retail use on the ground floor, and the second and third floors are occupied as joint work quarters for artists. The applicant is proposing to reconstruct the 4th and 5th floors and build.
Vivian, are the 2 floors currently occupied?
Yes. I've double-checked, yes, they are occupied. One had a lease, it is a rental building. One had a lease that expired in April 2014, and the second lease expires in June 2015. The proposal is to reconstruct the 4th and 5th floors, rather the 4th and 5th floors. This is the ground floor retail use, and these are the 2 existing floors with joint work quarters for artists, JLWQA. The applicant is proposing to rebuild the upper 2 stories and construct a 2-story duplex penthouse on the roof of the reconstructed portions. The applicant is seeking a modification of use pursuant to section 74711 to modify the use regulations of section 4210, the M15A, M15B regulations for a change of use for the 2 existing floors occupied as JLWQA from JLWQA use group 17D to use group 2 residential use, which is not allowed as of right in the M15A district. The applicant is also proposing on the to be constructed upper floors residential use, seeking special permits residential use on the upper floors. This would be for change of use, and this would be for a new use. The applicant is also seeking a modification of bulk pursuant to section 4317 of the M15A, M15B regulations. One may not enlarge a building containing joint work quarters for artists. In addition, the applicant is proposing 3 penthouses. There will be a penthouse for the occupants on the 4th story and 2 private penthouses for the duplex penthouse on the top of the building. And again, here you can see 3-story building and the sister buildings. And this is what the building would look like as reconstructed. The community board has recommended a conditional disapproval. The community board wrote that it appreciates that the applicant has agreed to place a plaque in the lobby in recognition of the artist, and that the applicant has revised the plans to eliminate rooftop access to the entire building and has agreed to a reduction of the height of the elevator bulkhead. The applicant had proposed an additional rooftop recreation space for the entire building. All the residents of the building, there would be 1 unit per floor on the roof of the duplex penthouse. The applicant has agreed not to do that and to reduce the height of the bulkhead. The community board has recommended the conditional disapproval of the use modification to allow use group 2 unless the plans are modified to include 1 or 2 affordable units at a level correlating to the appropriate median income. The BP noted in her recommendation that the community board had written that the loss of JLWQA was akin to losing affordable units and would negatively impact the character of the neighborhood. The borough president recommends a conditional disapproval. unless the applicant preserves both of the JLWQA units. The BP notes, and this is a quote, "When properly enforced, the restrictive nature of JLWQA units makes them less attractive to buyers than residential units of comparable size that are not bound by vocational restrictions. For this reason, JLWQA units are viewed by CB2 and many others as what had been affordable housing for artists. By the same token, property owners view JLWQA units as an impediment to achieving what they feel to be the full value of their buildings, the full value of their buildings." And this item is up for public hearing on Wednesday.
Questions? Mr. Dweck.
Just a question on the JLWQA units currently in place. Did we verify that they are actually occupied by artists?
I
are
have
conforming.
verified that they are occupied. I have not verified that they are occupied by artists, but the applicant will be prepared to talk on this matter at the public hearing on Wednesday.
Thank you.
Mr. Reade.
Is there a mechanism to allow or to restrict the uses to JLWQA on those 2 floors and allow residential up above?
Actually, no, because that would be the special permit. That would be the special permit that they're requesting, the modification of bulk, to allow the enlargement of a building where there's JLWQA, but not necessarily to residential above. That's what they are requesting.
Right. So we can enlarge the building, but the other one is to convert it to residential. But the question is, can you do both? I mean, can you restrict and, is there a mechanism?
Not,
There is a mechanism.
They're requesting a 74-7 for bulk and use modifications. So the commission would be able to modify one or both of those requests.
So we could restrict the modification to just the additional bulk, for instance?
Correct. If the commission wanted to, yes, allow for the additional bulk and for the new units, the commission could do that. Correct.
And just
Okay,
to
we'll
take...
figure it out.
and
One
just
moment,
to-
please. We're not going to.
Okay.
Edith or
Excuse me.
Vivian?
Sorry.
No,
Let
no,
me
I
just
apologize.
ask, let me just ask
Okay.
the,
pursuant to section 4317, you cannot enlarge a building irrespective of the use if there are JLWQA units in the building.
Oh,
Okay,
excuse me.
got it.
I stand corrected. Thank you,
Okay.
Vivian. Thank you.
The purpose of this action is a special permit to facilitate both the enlargement to the
Right.
building as well as its conversion for the newly constructed floors for residential and to convert the existing 2 units,
Right.
they are JLWQAs, to residential
Right.
use.
I think the question is, and we will have council look at this, is, the question is, given the district, could we, under these circumstances, permit the upper, pursuant to a special permit, the upper floors to be residential generally and retain the JLWQA on the existing floors?
We will get some clarification, but in the meantime, we will hear the applicant's case at the hearing on Wednesday, and we'll be back to you very soon after. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Levin, and then Ms. Efron.
I have one question about the current JLWQA units, and then a question about some of the information in the borough president's letter. The 2 existing units,
Yes.
are they rent stabilized now? Or maybe the applicant can tell us about that? Well, the applicant will come in person?
The applicant will come in person.
That's very good news.
Yeah. Currently, I thought it was just going to be the applicant's representative, but.
I think it would be really
the
helpful.
applicant will be
It
there.
makes a hugely positive impression when the applicant comes themselves, so I'm glad
The
you've
applicant will be there.
taken that step. And so, yes, of the current the status of the current tenants, how their leases got terminated, where they're going to go, are they rent-stabilized units? They would continue to be rent-stabilized units, perhaps. That will be useful information for this line of discussion that we just had.
Yeah, I mean, the applicant understands, the applicant representative understands that I have been asking about this information, so they will be fully prepared to discuss it
Good.
at the hearing.
So there's information in the Borough President's letter looking at the sweep of similar applications back through a number of years.
Yes.
That it's really only very recently that the commission has begun entertaining applications for use group, permits to allow use group 2 usage. And that in fact before, when you had property owners improving some of these older buildings, they were improving and perhaps even enlarging the buildings, but with JLWQA use, not unrestricted use group 2. Does that reflect a change in practice by the Department of City Planning?
No, it's, there just was a change in applications, change in the form of application.
Interesting.
It's not that there was no thought process that determined that we would now
Yeah,
entertain
it's just
these
interesting that
applications.
applicants finally, I mean, they must have figured they would find a receptive audience or they wouldn't be asking.
I can't say, I would not think that, because they know that they have to meet the findings.
Right.
So
Okay, but you're not
findings-
aware, there's not an agency policy on this?
There's not been any proactive statements from the agency regarding regarding a shift in policy in Soho. But of course, the reality is we are heading towards a shift in policy. We've commented on this before in past applications related to Soho.
Right, and I think there's that suggestion in the Borough President's letter, which personally I find well taken, that if we keep getting these, rather than rezone by special permit, we ought to be looking at a comprehensive adjustment
Yes.
of the rules there rather than the individual one.
Yes, we agree with that.
Okay, good.
Well,
Thank you.
Right. I mean, this is, many of you have commented on this over just in the last year, the challenges of the artist certification program in Soho. At the same time, we do have an existing regimen in place that, and it becomes particularly troublesome when there are literally tenants in place and where in the heart of an area that probably has the greatest concentration of JLWQA units. So,
And, I'm sorry, please go ahead.
Mr. Dwight.
Question. I noted that the leases expired in June of this coming June and April 2015. Is there any option for the tenants to renew these leases, or what would happen then if the landlord decided not to release the space as JLWQA units?
Residential use would still not simply be allowed as of right. So if they were to rent out once again those units, they could only be leased to JLWQA use unless the special permit, unless they go for a change of use for a special permit such as this.
But they have the option simply not to rent it at all. There's no.
They could keep it as vacant, yeah. There's no requirement that the
Well,
units be occupied.
this goes to Ms. Levin's question about whether the units are rent stabilized right now as well, because then if they are, they
must.
really don't have the option of not renewing. I would think that given the limited 2 units in the building, it's unlikely that they're rent stabilized, but I could be wrong. Ms. Efron.
I had a question about the window easements north and south of the building. And south of the building, whether we have any idea if those tenants are actually artists in the space, and would we in fact be putting their work at risk, or would this property be putting their work living space, their work aspect of their living space at risk additionally?
The windows on the sister building, so to speak, I was told by the applicant that those windows were installed illegally. There is an easement with regard to the large building here There are windows which would be blocked. There had been a previous application which was withdrawn for a very similar set of modifications. And there was an easement drawn up at that time that the owner of that building would allow the windows to be blocked by an enlargement. The agreement was entered into in June 1995. And the easement stated that the lot line windows at 104, 110 Green Street will not hinder the enlargement of 102 Green and authorizes the enlargement of 102 Green even if such windows must be removed. Yes. And the applicant has stated that that building does have a mix of offices and JLWQA on the upper floors. It has 3 south-facing lot line windows on each of the 5th, 6th, and 7th floors that would be affected by the proposed enlargement. The 5th and 7th floors contain offices, and the 6th floor contain wholesale retail use. So there is an easement, but again, I have gone over this with the applicant, and this as well they will be prepared to respond to at Wednesday's hearing. They understand that these will be issues that will be raised.
And the building to the south, it's the applicant that stated that they were installed illegally?
It is the applicant's understanding, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Ms. Young?
So back to the question of whether these are to be considered affordable housing or not. If they're not rent stabilized, would it be possible for us to find out from the applicant what the current contract rents, or for the one that was just expired in June, what the contract rents have been? I think that, I'm not really familiar with what the rents are doing in this particular little submarket, but I imagine that there's probably a range of rents that are available, particularly in this area, and it would be interesting to understand where those rents are against what we would consider sort of appropriate, area median income. So.
The community board just said that the request is that the plans be modified to include 1 or 2 affordable units at a level correlating to the appropriate area median income. That is what they have stated.
I'm not quite sure what that means. But was he?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the applicant's representative's here, but we'll make sure the applicant hears your request and see if they're prepared to speak to it on Wednesday.
And do you know if either the Community Board 2 or the Borough President are expected to testify at the public hearing?
I don't know, but I can certainly find out.
It would be helpful if someone from the Community Board could explain what that reference meant.
Sure, I will speak with both offices.
Okay. Mr. Eady.
Just a follow-up. Do we know if the owner of the building intends to make these improvements with or without tenants? I mean, I assume they intend to have the building, those 2 floors vacant at the time to make the improvements? Yeah, that's what I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, does it say so? Okay.
I'm not sure, and could you just repeat
I'm
your
assuming
question?
they intend to not make the improvement with tenants in place on those 2 floors.
We'll find out.
Okay.
We'll find out.
Does it say so?
Okay. The first floor will be occupied, but
The other 2 floors they intend to have vacant. Okay, thank you.
And I neglected to say that they have gone to landmarks, and they have a CFA and the MOU, yes.
Okay, thank you.
It appears that the applicant's representative is sitting in the audience, listening to all the questions of the commission.
Essentially privately
Good.
cross-subsidizing
Any other questions for Vivian on this?
the artist, not.
This will be a lively discussion on Wednesday. Thank you, Vivian.
Wow.
Let's now move to item number 7, page 130. It's our second pre-hearing item. This time, this is a proposed South Shore Business Improvement District in Staten Island. And our presenter is Tamara. This is item number 7, page 130, Staten Island pre-hearing for the proposed South Shore Business Improvement District.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The Department of Small Business Services has submitted to the Department of City Planning an application to establish a business improvement district encompassing 3 commercial town centers on the south shore of Staten Island. A business improvement district, or a BID, is a special tax district in which property owners pay a fee for supplemental services to improve commercial and retail areas. The BID has been organized by the Staten Island Economic Development Corporation, or SIEDC, a not-for-profit organization that promotes economic development on Staten Island and is not affiliated with the New York City Economic Development Corporation. Funding for the BID organizing effort was provided by Councilmember Vincent Ignizio. This item is on for hearing on Wednesday, December 3rd. The proposed BID is located in the towns of Great Kills, Eltingville, and Annandale, which are situated on the south shore of Staten Island along the Staten Island Railroad. The BID will attempt to manage 3 small, non-contiguous commercial strips as one entity, as each street is too small to support its own BID. This will be the first time in New York City that there will be one BID managing 3 nearby commercial nodes. There are many small streets in the city that could benefit from a BID mechanism, so this is potentially a model of how that might work. The area contains 275 businesses on 217 properties, spanning approximately 62 acres from Miles Avenue in the north to Albee Avenue in the south. The zoning is C11, C12, C21, C41, and C81, and all properties are in the Special South Richmond Development District. Approximately 2/3 of the area is made up of commercial office space, while the remaining area is characterized by public facilities, transportation and utilities, vacant land, 1- and 2-family residential homes, and parking lots. There are 82 residential units within the proposed district. The majority of included businesses are independently owned, with some regional and national chain stores, including TD Bank, Stop & Shop, CVS, Sleepy's, and the Richmond County Savings Bank, which has been highly involved in the organizing efforts of the BID. Most commercial space is located on the ground floor, though there are some examples of office buildings with upper floor commercial space. The area contains pedestrian-oriented retail shops, as well as numerous strip malls in fair to good condition. There are many active businesses, but also many struggling businesses and some commercial vacancy. The current vacancy rate in the district is less than 10%. The district has a number of public transit modes, making it convenient for shoppers and visitors. Each town within the district has a Staten Island railway station at its hub, providing access not only to the rest of Staten Island, but the Staten Island Ferry as well. As the automobile is the predominant means of transportation on Staten Island, parking remains a significant challenge, and efforts to improve traffic flow and parking will be addressed by the BID's advocacy program. The 3 town centers within the BID are in competition with regional commercial centers such as Highland Boulevard and Richmond Avenue corridor, as well as the Staten Island Mall. The BID proposes a first-year budget of $185,000. The budget will spend $26,000 for sanitation services, which will include the manual sweeping and cleaning of sidewalks, as well as public plazas and street curbs, the emptying of pedestrian trash receptacles, graffiti removal, and the maintenance of street trees. An estimated $72,000 will be spent on security services, including surveillance equipment and security personnel who will patrol the area for a modest number of hours. The budget allocates $39,000 for marketing and promotion, which will include joint advertising, special events, light pole banners, an effective social media presence, and efforts to build on existing special events such as the Annandale tree lighting, Art in the Towns program, and Family Fun Day. Lastly, the BID expects to spend $48,000 for general administrative expenses. The BID projects modest expenditures for services because of the need to have a relatively low assessment on property owners. It hopes to supplement BID funds with funds from elected officials and private donations. All properties in whole or in part devoted to commercial use or mixed use, including parking facilities and vacant lots, are defined as Class A property and shall be assessed at a rate based on the linear front footage for the specific property. The individual assessment rate for each property owner includes a base fee of $500, in addition to an amount equal to the Class A front footage rate, which is projected to be $6.50, multiplied by the front footage of the property. The lowest assessment payment is projected to be the base fee of $500, while the highest is projected to be just over $5,000. The median assessment rate is $873, while the average is just over $1,000. Government and not-for-profit owned property are exempt from assessment. All properties devoted in whole to residential uses will be assessed at $1 per year. SIEDC surveyed 217 property owners. Of the 98 responses, 78 were in favor of the bid, while 20 were opposed. Though the mailing response rate was not particularly strong, there was a robust face-to-face outreach effort, and there was overwhelming support of the commercial tenants for the bid. The community board voted 41-1 in favor of the bid. Thank you, and I'll take questions.
Questions for Tamara? Mr. Dweck.
So first, I'd like to say I think this is a great program. It serves for a future model for future bids in areas that don't have enough sustainability for a bid on their own. And I'd like to know what kind of metrics are going to be put in place to measure the success of the bids, so that when we do try and roll them out in other areas, I could think of several in Brooklyn, where I'm from, that would benefit from something like this, that we can go to the community and to the local shopkeepers and say, well, this is a test pilot we did in South Shore of Staten Island, and this is the success rate, et cetera. So I think with this bid, we should really try and put into place some kind of system where we can measure the success, and I believe it will be a success. So can you speak about any plans to do that?
Yeah, I think it's something we can talk about as SBS is here, and we can sort of talk about come to the mic. We can talk about this with SBS as to how this might be replicated and where it might be appropriate to replicate this type of model.
Thank you.
Other questions for Tamara? Ms. Ortiz.
Hi. I agree. I think this is a great proposal that offers opportunities to form bids and to share administrative costs across multiple bids. I was wondering, because it is the first of its kind, has there been thought about to how these funds will be distributed among each of the districts?
I don't think that there has been a discussion just yet, but SIEDC will be here on Wednesday and can answer that question.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Also, one thing I perhaps is a concern. I'm not sure, but the first year budget is really quite low, and I'm curious. If this is about $2,900 per acre. I don't know, where that stands against other budgets. If there's another metric, expenditure per block, or something against which we can determine, is this really too low of a budget for what you're hoping to do? Because we'd hate to have this, be an anemic budget for what they're hoping to do and have it fail.
Yeah, it is, I think, a question for Staten Island Economic Development Corporation as to whether this is going to be enough money to operate. They're thinking about very modest amounts of services. They're thinking about having people like sweep a street once a week. The level of activity on these streets is sort of different than you have in other parts of the city. So I think we're hopeful that they don't need to have as robust amount of services as is the practice in other places. The merchants particularly want security here. Their budget for security is very modest. They're talking about having security patrols a couple of days a week. It seems rather, it's going to be very, very limited in terms of what they're getting. Yeah. I think, if the property owners and merchants don't understand that you're only going to get what you pay for, and they've said this is what we're going to want to pay for, that's a reasonable, it's not for us to second guess, how much they're going to spend.
It just gets back to the question that Commissioner Dweck raised around, how do we measure success? If you spread this budget very thin, it'll be hard to, correlate any improvements in the district back to the bid. You know, I hate to see the opportunity to create something great.
Yeah, I think another
undermined.
concern here is that, you know, there's always competition between the different streets, and it's going to really be up to the bid sponsor to make sure that everybody feels like they're treated fairly and that it doesn't appear that one area is being favored over another. And so that's going to be a tricky thing in terms of operating the bid.
Mr. Eady, and then Ms. Levin.
To that last point, in terms of formulating this as one bid with 3 non-contiguous areas, had any thought been given to doing 3 separate bids with one operator, just as a way of, a different way of looking at the same problem in terms of each area kind of assessing themselves and doing the work they need to do, but sharing the cost of the operation? I'm just curious.
I don't know. I mean, that is a question as to whether that was contemplated.
Okay.
It's a question to SBS on Wednesday, and that is a model that SBS has used before,
Yes.
so. Ms. Levin.
Yes, it did strike me, I actually have 2 questions, one more about the budget and one about the response supporting this. It did strike me that of this budget, by far the largest budget item is security services. You know, if you add that to administrative, 2/3 of this budget is really about security and the administration to support the security. So how does that interface with, are there particular security problems in this area? How does that interface with NYPD attention to the area? Is this unusual? Is there an unusual problem that needs to be solved here, or what?
There is at least a perceived issue that the merchants have with the kids getting out of school, getting on the train. And so I guess the kids are kind of rowdy as they come from school. And so the notion is to sort of have a certain amount of security around the end of the school day around train stations. But then there are other issues, I guess, at night as well, but there's some concerns about general security. So, but it is very modest, so they're not.
Yeah, which returns us to is it adequate if that's the problem? You mentioned that the response rate was relatively low, and my question is whether they met the thresholds that are usually applied for bids of 51% of property owners or 51% of assessed value in support of this, or does this really have sort of borderline community support?
They did not meet the threshold. I believe of the commercial tenants, it's at 41% right now. But of the face-to-face interactions that the bid organizers had, there was a lot of support for the bid.
They had a lot of trouble getting people to sign ballots in favor. But generally speaking, while there was some opposition, for the most part, people were reasonably favorable. At least they were not.
Okay, so it's not that there's opposition, there just may be apathy. So then I take it, this is a district plan that's being presented to us by the mayor's office, not at the request of these property owners? I mean, I'm looking at the charter provisions for how you get here.
I think it's been advanced with the help of the council member Ignacio, who actually paid for the organizing effort and has been pushing the city to move forward on this.
Yeah. Okay.
Ms. Efron.
Often a bid comes out of a previous local development corporation effort, and I just wonder if there are any merchant association, local development corporation, or other organizing and nonprofit entities that exist in any of these 3 areas. And then I also just wanted to note that the security service being the largest, and street cleaning being the largest portion of this budget, is also the hardest to share among 3 geographically dispersed areas, because you'll get much less per person when they have to also travel within that. It would be great if small business services were prepared to talk about other security programs they might have in place that could benefit these neighborhoods, separate and apart from a bid program.
So in terms of the sanitation services, the plan is to have one person who will service each area once a week on separate days. And there is a local development corporation in the area that was involved in the organizing of the bid and is in support of the bid.
And where does it currently operate?
I can get back to you with that information.
Great. It would be great to know if they've done any sharing among these 3 commercial areas before and how successful it's been and where the pitfalls
I
are.
think there was a LDC that handled, I think their area was the South Shore, but then when it came time to do the organizing, it was felt by the council member that Staten Island EDC was a more robust organization, more capable of actually doing the organizing effort.
Great. It just may serve as a good example for how it can work together. Right?
Mr. Dweck.
An observation, going back to Commissioner Ead's point, being that they're non-contiguous, I think the composition of the board is really going to play a very important part in the success of the bid, because if one part gets more services, obviously, than the other, this thing will be back here in a year for 3 separate bids or whatever it might be. So I think that in establishing the board, you really need to look at having an equal representation from all the diverse groups and stakeholders. Thank you.
Ms. Ortiz.
One thing on the 3 bids versus, 1 bid is that when you have 3 bids, you have 3 boards. And managing them is a job in and of itself. So I can understand that this is a much better alternative. In addition to the security and sanitation, you had mentioned social media, marketing, promotion, events, advocacy for funds, which suggests a very capable executive director. These bids are often one staff person, and so again, it just goes back to: are we anticipating, a salary that's commensurate with the kind of person who can make this a success at the end of the day? We have had instances of bids failing miserably, in part because the staff person of one was not up to the task.
Well, part of the advantage of having SIEDC involved is that it's a robust organization that brings additional resources. So it's not going to be like a one-person operation. It'll be one person in charge of the bid, but they'll have the support of the
They'll be embedded within. Okay. And I would like to just request that we get some sort of a metric back on, where this budget falls with respect to other bids. Some, is it by block face, something that allows us to determine, how robust the budget is and how commensurate it is with others. Thank you.
Do you know, other than SBS, who will testify on Wednesday? Are the bids organizers going to be here?
SIEDC will be here. A number of merchants should be here. And it's also possible the council member may attend as well.
And this has beyond the outreach to the property owners and the commercial tenants, have there been community meetings on this, and did this go to the community board for any discussion before it came here?
It did. It went to Community Board 3 last week and was voted 41 in favor and 1 against.
Do you know if there was, at the community board, whether there was any public testimony from people in the 3 bid areas who were opposed?
Who were opposed?
Yeah.
No, there was no testimony at the community board meeting in opposition to the bid.
Okay. Ms. Besser.
Thank you. Did you previously say that over 90% of the respondents to the surveys were in favor of the bid? I think you said 91% or something earlier when I spoke with you.
Yeah, when we spoke earlier, I was using a number that I had previously from SIEDC, and I just received a updated sheet from SBS. so that's not here. We have 48% of all properties are in favor of the bid. 57% of all assessed value is in favor of the bid, and 42% of all tenants, 42% of all tenants are in favor of the bid.
Commercial tenants.
Of all tenants. Also, 42% of commercial tenants are in favor of the bid.
Balance being non-responsive, not in opposition.
I'm sorry?
The balance is non-responsive, not
Right.
opposition.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Tamara? Okay, see you on Wednesday. Thanks.
Okay, so speaking of Wednesday, staff have prepared favorable resolutions for the following. The Silverstein Residence, which is proposed special natural area district authorization, facilitate a pool, second floor addition, and a terrace concerning a single-family residence in the Bronx. We also have the 25 Elm Place NYPD offices proposed for downtown Brooklyn. We have the Doring Bohack House landmark. Staff is not aware of any conflicts with the zoning resolution, projected public improvements, or plans for the area involved. We have a proposed acquisition of property and easements to facilitate stormwater management in the Travis community of Staten Island. We have 56 East Entry Road, which is also a SNAD authorization to facilitate a pool, patio, and deck for a single-family home in Staten Island. And we have 35 Coverly Avenue, which is a special natural area district authorization to facilitate patio and existing single-family home. Assuming all is well with those, moving on to December 17th in a couple of weeks, we have the special West Chelsea District expansion proposal. Commissioners, you heard testimony raised with respect to two issues. One had to do with rear yard equivalents concerning an existing building, and the other had to do with permitting sidewalk cafes. Eric and Dakota are here to lead us in that discussion.
Good afternoon. So as Jackie says, we're back to provide some follow-up on two issues which were raised at public hearing, and specifically with regard to the rear yard provisions that are proposed and the sidewalk cafes. I'll start out with the sidewalk cafe portion. To refresh your memory, sidewalk cafes are currently not permitted within the special West Chelsea district. The proposed text amendment that was certified and will be coming back for a vote would permit unenclosed sidewalk cafes on wide streets within the special district, specifically along 10th Avenue, 11th Avenue, West 23rd Street, and on 9th Avenue on the Chelsea Market block, as well as within the proposed expansion area of around West 15th Street, which is in blue on the map. CB4 in its resolution regarding the expansion of the special West Chelsea district and in testimony at the public hearing requested removal of the 9th Avenue frontage of Chelsea Market from the sidewalk cafe applicability, the area highlighted in the red circle on the map. Specifically, the community board conditioned its approval upon the removal of the 9th Avenue frontage of Chelsea Market from sidewalk cafe applicability. The borough president, in her recommendation to approve, requested that the agency examine the issue more closely. The block front in question on 9th Avenue currently contains an existing sidewalk cafe. Giovanni Rana is the name of the existing restaurant at that location that operates the cafe. Anthropology, a retail establishment, is also located on that block front. There's a large entrance to the Chelsea Market itself opening onto 9th Avenue, and there is also a restaurant, Budokan, on the corner of West 16th Street and 9th Avenue. Community Board 4 has indicated that the current sidewalk cafe, Giovanni Rana, is not the issue here, that they don't have problems with its operation at this location, but that their concern is about the level of pedestrian volume on this block with ins and out from Chelsea Market, tour bus drop-offs, and general crowding on the street.
The staff here at City Planning believes that the inclusion of this block in the area of sidewalk cafe applicability is appropriate, and recommends that the commission maintain this block be included in the area where sidewalk cafes would be permitted in the special district. Leading us to this conclusion is really the fact that CB4 has indicated that the existing cafe is not a problem. As I'll discuss a little bit more in a moment, there is a history of cafes operating legally at this location since at least 2005. We believe that there's limited opportunity for the creation of new sidewalk cafes on the block front, given the existing uses on the block. As you can see on this map, the broader area surrounding the subject block permits cafes along nearly every street frontage. The areas highlighted in green on the map are where sidewalk cafes are unenclosed sidewalk cafes are currently permitted. So you can see really broadly from the meatpacking district to the south to the avenue frontages of Chelsea to the north and to the west, and then more broadly to the east, unenclosed sidewalk cafes are currently permitted. So really the special West Chelsea district is kind of an anomaly in that they're not permitted today. So we feel that the removal of the 9th Avenue block frontage is really unlikely to contribute to a opening up of pedestrian congestion for the broader pedestrian network in the area. Additionally, food and dining are really integrally linked to the Chelsea market's identity and to the attraction of this destination location. The elimination of sidewalk dining would seem to run counter to this identity. And in terms of just general consistency, sidewalk cafes would be permitted along the 10th Avenue frontage of Chelsea Market on the western side of the Chelsea Market block, which has similar conditions of pedestrian volume. There's a high line frontage on the block immediately to the north. A primary entrance to Chelsea Market is also located on 10th Avenue. So these are kind of the reasons I think that lead us to the conclusion that from a staff level, we believe that, that the 9th Avenue frontage is appropriate for unenclosed sidewalk cafes. Furthermore, at the public hearing, there were several questions that were raised regarding the legal status and the history of the existing cafe, Giovanni Rana, on the subject block frontage. The existing cafe was licensed by DCA in January of 2013. It succeeded a previous cafe, which was licensed and operated at the same location from 2005 to 2011. DCA has indicated that based on prior history of operation of sidewalk cafes at this location, it would consider the cafe, the existing cafe, grandfathered regardless of whether the block front is included in the area of sidewalk cafe applicability. So Dakota will walk you through the staff recommendations regarding the rear yard provisions.
Good afternoon. In addition, the commission heard testimony from the applicant for a property at 510 West 22nd Street, which was in response to the clarifications that we were making to the rear yard equivalent provisions in Special West Chelsea. To give you a little bit of background, Special West Chelsea relies on the underlying bulk regulations except as modified. So the underlying M15 areas of Special West Chelsea would ordinarily allow you to provide a rear yard equivalent either at the mid-block or adjacent to the streets or along the sides of the property. But what Special West Chelsea does is then requires a street wall. So for a certain height and a certain length of the frontage, you would be required to maintain a street wall. These two provisions don't necessarily work together in the sense that if you provided your rear yard equivalents adjacent to the street, you couldn't meet the street wall requirements. So as part of the expansion, we chose to clarify this condition and say that rear yard equivalents shall be provided at the mid-block in order to coincide with the street wall provisions. The applicant has an existing building that is proposing to be enlarged while maintaining those rear yard equivalents at the street line. We've done an analysis of the surrounding blocks to determine if there are any other buildings such as this within close proximity to the High Line. This is the only one. We've also reviewed their proposed text amendment, which would limit the applicability of this modification, which would allow for existing buildings that are within 150 feet of the High Line to be enlarged with the rear yard equivalent at the street line. So there are no other buildings that this would be affected. We've had indication from the community board that they are not opposed to this modification. But we're still waiting on official word from them, but we do believe by email that they gave us the go-ahead. And then I have copies of the text that would be proposed if anyone has any questions.
Thank you.
Any questions for Dakota? Any questions for Eric? Any questions? Ms. Levin?
So staff is recommending the text change that the applicant has, you're recommending that we fix the text to allow this enlargement?
Yes, there would be a proposed modification to the rear yard provision as it's currently contained in the application.
Works for me, sounds like a good solution.
Any other questions about anything? All right, any other items, Madam Secretary, to come before us?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we stand adjourned until Wednesday. Thank you.